So after much ado. So imagine you're going to a shoe store and all they have are sneakers of a specific size. We all have our different comforts and preferences, but there's this one store and it only has one particular type of shoe. Some people try it, they love it. It's comfortable for them, the size is okay, and it just works for them overall. There are some other people who are trying it, it's okay, maybe works with a bit of adjustment, or maybe I'm just gonna give it a few more days. There's this concept of break it in, and they just end up purchasing it. And there are some people who they just don't know what else to do because there's no other option. So they also end up taking it. What if I were to use the same analogy in relationships? Monogamy, something we're all very aware of and it's highly prevalent. Monogamy meaning that you're committed to one person, emotionally, sexually, and in all senses. And that's just how you go about your life. And well, yeah, if we look at the numbers and in general the practices in marriages and the institutions that we have today, monogamy is something that everybody does, especially when it comes to, being open about it. But what if it's not for everyone? What if I'm in a monogamous relationship? Well, I'm happy emotionally, but, maybe there are some other things that I'm not really satisfied here. Maybe I have some desires that my partner does not really feel that he vibes with or wants to do. What am I supposed to do then? Am I just going to spend the rest of my life in a relationship which is, well, it kind of works and, it's like good enough and I don't know what else to do? Or maybe I could just explore what else is out there. But explore it in the sense that me, my partner, and anyone involved in this scenario, they all consent to it. They're all very aware of it. There's clear communication. Everybody is transparent. And then we move forward. So that's what we're going to talk about today, ethical non-monogamy. Well, of course, we have to come and talk about how monogamy ever came into existence. So this goes back like long way back, and it's more of a combination of different, biological, social, or cultural practices. If we have to look at the biological or evolutionary perspectives, well, it kind of made more sense if I want to have a child to have a dedicated partner, right? Because if I'm in a non-monogamous relationship, I might be engaged with few other people or, in cohorts with someone else. Well, then how am I going to have or raise a child? Like there's an investment which is required to raise a child, right? It's not just about birthing one. So it would make more sense if I have a partner who's dedicated to me and I'm dedicated to them. Resource distribution. When you live in a scenario where the resources are, well, not very easily available or you sort of have to fight for them, it makes more sense to fight for just one person or my family rather than, maybe doing it for other people as well. There are also social and cultural factors. When you think about it in terms of a society, I don't want to compete for my partner. I don't want to, constantly be fighting against someone and having to prove myself. So I would do that one time and, maybe we'll all form a bond and we'll continue that way. That is monogamy. Not that it's bad, but that's just the structure. Agricultural societies. When we moved from the hunter-gatherer phases to, actually growing our own crops and, building a society, well, then came the concept of families, inheritance. I have a land. Well, I want to keep it in my family. I don't want to, give it to other people or just let it be open like that. So monogamy made sense if I have to think about it from that perspective. And of course, ultimately, religious and legal institutions. Marriage on paper and legally is every institute or religion promotes monogamy, a single partnership with your person of choice. So it goes long back. To be honest, it's a speculation. Different reasons which make sense when you think about monogamy in terms of how the society has grown. But we of course have examples of non-monogamous relationships which also go long back. Mahabharata. I'm pretty sure everybody would be aware of Draupadi. She had 5 husbands. We have Krishna and his consorts. Krishna and his gopis. There were like, I don't know, some 16,000 of them. Akbar. Akbar Birbal person. He was famous for being in marrying more than one person. And he also used to, do it with different religions, because that was more from a perspective of growing his empire. But yeah, there also we have an example. And there are also some tribal communities which have been practicing non-monogamy as part of their culture. It's already in it, and they are continuing it. And there are actually more examples if you think about it. There were some communities in South India as well, wherein women were in the practice of having more than one husband. And all of this was consensual. So now talking about ethical, consensual non-monogamy. So it encompasses a variety of relationship styles. It's not just, 0-1, it's not binary here. Where all the parties involved, any number of parties and partners involved, agree. They agree in, beforehand, they consent to whatever is happening. There's transparency, there's communication all throughout. And it can be in any form. It could just be emotional, it could be sexual, it could be a combination of the two, or anything. It depends on the people involved. So let's talk about polyamory. Polyamory is more of romantic as well as an emotional angle involved. It could be in different combinations. It could be 3 people, a couple and another person joining. It could be 2 couples. It could be anything. Open relationships. Open relationships have the concept of a primary partner. So if I'm dating somebody or if I'm with someone, that person is my primary partner, and I'm going to keep my emotional exclusivity with that person. But beyond this, I also want to explore other areas. I want to explore my desires or anything else. So for that, I can approach someone else, wherein they are also very aware of my status, of who I am, what my relationship is like. My partner is aware, and it is all consensual. Relationship anarchy. Well, this is something that's more about keeping your autonomy in a relationship and being flexible. This is more of a setting wherein, again, of course, there's consent by the people involved, but they don't really conform to a certain label or a standard. They don't want to define primary, secondary, or other things. They want to keep it open. They want to preserve their autonomy in the sense that they are not really compromising on what they are, who they are, and what they want. And at the same time, they're respecting their partner and their choices. Swinging. Swinging is a form of open relationship wherein, again, similar concept that it has a primary person, and then swinging happens, only seen in movies, but usually happens in, parties, wherein, again, everybody is aware of what is happening, and there are different forms of it. There could be a smaller version of it wherein, you just agree that we are not going to engage in maybe physical aspect of it. We just want to see, things from an emotional perspective, or even in the physical sense of things, you can keep a limit. You can define that, hey, I'm comfortable with up until this point, but beyond that, I want exclusivity. Or the other one wherein you just decide that you want to swap altogether. Key principles. An important thing that I learned from this presentation as well. The 4 key principles that I'm covering are consent, communication, respect and honesty, and boundary. The most important point of an ethical, non-monogamous relationship is consent. Not that monogamous relationships don't have that, but therein you're just with another partner, which is why it is kind of overlooked, which is a bad thing. But when you're in a setting wherein you're involved with more than one person, wherein there are multiple people and their emotions and their values at stake, consent is one of the most important things. You're only doing things which you're comfortable with, your partner is comfortable with, and anyone involved in that setting is comfortable with. Communication. There has to be, and there is, a high level of self-awareness and a habit to reflect, understand yourself fully when you're into a non-monogamous relationship. Because therein you cannot just ignore something that is happening. You cannot ignore a trigger. You cannot ignore a situation or what your partner is saying, because everything has a direct implication on what the future can be for maybe just your monogamy or your primary partner or anyone involved in that matter. So it's very important to communicate openly about everything. Could be emotion, could be your desire, could be anything. And you have to address everything which includes your needs. For you to be able to address your needs, you need to know your needs. And you can only know your needs when you're aware of them, when you reflect. I'm aware of myself, let's say an ambiguous number of 50%. I know who I am at a 50% level. Tomorrow, I'm going to try to take it to 51. Day after would be 52, so forth and so on. So it's not that you can just know yourself one day and you're going to stop growing. I mean, some people do. But if we have to think about a progressive way of living our life, you grow every day. So I might have a new need, a desire tomorrow. So I have to constantly reflect, understand who I am, what my needs are, and let's say I have a need today, could be different tomorrow, could be opposite of that, could be just a build up on that. So a constant self-reflection and awareness of your desires and communicating that with your partner or everyone involved. Respect and honesty. You have to be respectful in general itself. That's a human value we have. And when you're involved in a scenario wherein what you do, what you say can directly impact anyone, not just maybe your primary partner, anyone involved, you have to be respectful. You have to convey your desires or your needs in a way that it is reciprocated in a healthy sense of things. And you have to be honest with yourself and with everyone involved. Boundaries. Well, a very clear example of boundaries would be, open relationships for that matter, wherein you have a primary partner and you've decided that, hey, my emotional intimacy is only for you. That is exclusive between us. I'm not going to share that with anyone. That is a boundary that I'm establishing. And when I try to pursue any other desire that I have with someone else, that boundary remains because I respect you enough in the relationship. So if you think about it and you give it a look, these are the same, whether monogamous, non-monogamous, or any kind of relationship structure that you have. So it's not really so different, maybe not common, but it's absolutely the same, and it is something that we should otherwise as well practice in our lives. To look at, maybe the benefits of non-monogamy in a general sense, not really trying to form an opinion here, but just for us to know. One thing I really agree with as well while preparing this PPT is something I realized: personal growth. Something that I pointed out a few minutes back. You have to be very aware of yourself, very aware of your desires, who you are as a person, how you're changing. If something is happening, how is that impacting you? Let's say if a monogamous relationship, a monogamous couple decide that they want to open up their relationship a bit. It would be extremely important for them to communicate each and everything to each other. It would be extremely important for them to reflect on what has happened since we did this and then share it with their partner. So what you're doing in the underlying sense of things is personal growth, because you're heightening your self-awareness, you're heightening your knowledge about yourself, you're discovering yourself. So personal growth, crazy, I think, the level. Diverse support. So the people in non-monogamous relationship usually aren't very open. I mean, it depends on how accepted they feel in a space or how open the space is for them to want to, share this. So the community that they form, the network that they have, they get a diverse support. Also in the sense that, if you're deciding that I don't want to offload all of my emotional needs on one person or just two people, you have a support system you form there as well. Because, you could be seeking support for something from person A versus person B. And of course, there's flexibility and freedom. Since there is consent, since there is open communication, everybody is aware of what their partner is doing or what is happening in a particular scenario. So there is absolute flexibility. You talk about what you want. You talk about where you are and what is changing with time. So you get that space as well. And at the same time, of course, there are challenges. The one that stands out maybe would be jealousy and insecurity. Even in a monogamous relationship, it is quite normal to feel jealous or maybe possessive of your partner. So to be honest, I cannot even imagine how it would be in a non-monogamous relationship. So to overcome those, like, it's very normal to have these feelings. There's nothing wrong with that. It's just an emotion. But the fact that when you are feeling like this, or when you're, starting to have such an insecurity in you, for you to be able to have a conversation with yourself and, channelize your rational side of the brain, wherein it's, I'm aware of what is happening with me, what I'm feeling, and now I'm going to be rational about it and not react, but respond. I'm going to talk to my partner, or I'm going to talk to the people involved, and we'll see how we take it from there. Right? You talk about it. When you talk about things, you resolve them. You do the process of conflict resolution. So, addressing any and all of your insecurities. Dividing time. I mean, as the name itself makes it clear, it could be difficult in a open relationship of, if you're involved with multiple people, given that there could be some jealousy and insecurity involved, with maybe some person is feeling it more, or the other person is feeling it in a different way. To be able to then give the other person enough time and space and cater to them, their needs, could be a little challenging if you think about it and compare it with a monogamous relationship wherein you're with just one person. Social stigma, one big factor. This is a kind of relationship structure, or just the concept itself is very rarely talked about. People who would be into such an arrangement would be only probably sharing it with closest of their friends, or would rather stay mum if the topic comes up, because there's a lot of social stigma, which, like we have with almost every other thing in our society. So to also bring it to a position wherein people know that there are other ways, to connect, there are other ways to love, show love, and be in love, and to just normalize it as a concept, because non-monogamy does not equal cheating or having affairs or infidelity. Non-monogamy is a respectful, consensual way of attaching with or getting involved with more than one person in a romantic sense of things. I think a lot of people in general, if you bring up this topic, consider it to be cheating. They have this view that non-monogamy is just a fancy term for people who want to cheat, and they use it as an excuse, but that's not what it is. Which is why we're learning about it, so that we can educate ourselves that there are other ways. You don't have to struggle, you don't have to be in a relationship that is not making you thrive or that is not making you happy, because there are other ways. There are people who you can come across or find who will get this about you, who will also understand your needs and will be on the same page with you. So, to end with, love is infinite, and so is our capacity to love. A very simple sentence, but it conveys what I wanted to say. Just because you share your love doesn't mean that the other person is getting less of it. If you think about it, on a very objective sense, friendship is polyamorous, right? It's not like you can only have one friend. No, you can have many friends and you love all of them in different capacities. One is my best friend, the other person is a good friend, close friend, or something else like that. There could be labels, or there doesn't have to be. Who cares? So, love is infinite. You can choose, share your love the way you want, in a respectful manner, in a consensual manner. I have also attached some resources for people if they want to check it out. First one is a subreddit. I wanted to include a subreddit because Reddit is, of course, an interactive community. So if you have a question about something, you can ask, or you can just browse through. Others are blog posts. So that is all. Thank you.
Take up a very controversial topic. It's great.